there is a lot going on with TikTok right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking probably hundreds of millions of users potentially being banned totally from TikTok. And TikTok is putting up a fight. So ByteDance, which is the parent company of TikTok, has been told by essentially the U.S. government that they need to sell TikTok to primarily be held by U.S. owners just because of data security issues. And TikTok's pushing back. ByteDance is suing now the U.S. government for infringing on the First Amendment rights of U.S. citizens, which I think is interesting that a foreign company is suing the United States government for infringing upon rights. A lot of people are speculating that this lawsuit is to kind of draw out the process, give them some more time.
It's so fascinating, like you said, that another country is suing the U.S. government. There's a lot of power to have over somebody else's society, like especially with how much we all consume this. I heard that they sent out like a notification about how to contact your local representative. That is wild. Like, can you imagine us sending something to all the Chinese citizens being like, contact your local? That wouldn't happen. Welcome back to Creator Files Podcast. I'm Julia, and here's Nathan. Today we're talking about the Creator Files. This is Creator Files. We're talking about the creator economy. I almost said Creator Files. And kind of the state that it's in right now. And maybe we'll make some very loosely based predictions about where it's headed. Just kind of the pulse on where things are at and the direction that it looks like they're going. I don't want to predict too much. Because who knows? Things with technology move so fast and so unpredictably. But I think it would be really interesting to just talk about what we're seeing right now. So give me your initial thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much going on. I think probably one of the biggest things that I'm recognizing in the creator economy right now is that the creators are moving out of the very stereotypical creator space. You know, like it's YouTube, you know, Facebook, Instagram, those kind of places. We're seeing lots of creators do deals with very traditional types of media, whether that's audio or visual like Hollywood, streaming platforms, lots of creators doing more and more projects, kind of mainstream, like in grocery stores, you know, food and other clothing products, but not just clothing products on their own personal branded website, but products in retail stores. We're just seeing more and more and more of that. And anyway, I have some examples here we can talk through, but you mentioned really just before we started recording this that you were listening to a Colin and Samir episode, and they had made some predictions of YouTube in, was it 5 years?
Yeah, and this is 2 years ago.
2 years ago. So what were a couple of the things that was there anything that they had said that kind of has happened already, or?
Well, I didn't listen to the whole thing, but one thing they were talking about was shorts and how they thought that it seemed like they had more confidence in shorts than has come to pass, at least so far. Mm-hmm. They talked about YouTube being like on the homepage of every time you open Google, which I would say that is more come to pass than the shorts. I don't know what's going on with the shorts. It seemed like they had to have done better than they did.
Right.
It's like YouTube put all this into them. Shorts are working so well on other platforms. And for some reason on YouTube, it's just not really getting traction. They're doing better. Sometimes they work. But
I've seen over the last probably 2 or 3 years when they first introduced them onto the platform, man, it was terrible. Yeah. I mean, I would open up, YouTube on my phone, and I would click on the one of the first shorts that I would see, and I would scroll, and I would see the same content. Every time that I pulled open my phone, I would see the same content over and over again. Partially, that may be because I didn't watch them all the time, and so I didn't give the algorithm much to work with.
Yeah.
But over time, I do think I feel like it has improved. And I was just reading something the other day that shorts are getting a lot of views on YouTube, probably more than I even expected. Mm-hmm. But with everything that's going on in the short form industry right now, I think there's some pretty big opportunities for YouTube to take more of the market share. I mean, we're going to talk about some of those things a little bit later. But yeah, I think that YouTube is kind of in a unique situation where, like Instagram, for example, with Reels. Instagram before Reels was photos.
Yeah.
To consume a photo takes less time than to consume a video, right? So when they added shorts, they were they were adding longer form content.
Good point.
Whereas YouTube's having to move to shorter form content. And then same for TikTok. TikTok just started with short form content, but that's just what they've been. So they didn't have to pivot. And when Instagram pivoted, I guess is what you could say, they were pivoting into longer form content, which was still short form, but they just were able to kind of match kind of what TikTok was putting forward and lots of shorter videos you'd see on Facebook. So I think YouTube really is in a unique scenario where they didn't want to miss out on an opportunity for some market share there, but I do think that they're probably in the hardest position to get that market share.
Have you noticed that the YouTube Shorts algorithm doesn't seem particularly customized? Sometimes I'm surprised where I'll be on my personal account and I'll see a video, and then I'll be on one of the work accounts and I'll see a lot of the same suggested shorts. And I think, well, that's not very customized.
I've noticed that to some extent, especially earlier on. To be completely fair, I don't watch a lot of YouTube shorts. I do primarily watch long form content, but when I do see some custom stuff, but you typically have to scroll a little bit longer. I think that, and I've noticed this across, Instagram and TikTok, a lot of times, like I'll watch a video and I'll just think it's funny. I'll save it. And then, okay, you're going to get to know me a little bit here. Every night or every other night, my wife and I will always share funny videos.
Nice.
Like, all the time.
What a good tradition.
Or like I'll send videos to my brother or whatever. They're just short little funny videos. We will end up oftentimes saving the same videos.
Wow.
And so to me, it just feels like, and again, like 2 people, what a great data set, right? But I think there's these like most popular shorts that are getting pushed out to everybody. And so I think that that's probably why it doesn't feel as custom. But the same thing happens with long form, I think. Like, just think how many impressions Mr. Beast videos get.
Right.
Like, most people are probably getting those showing up on their homepage.
But I don't.
Really?
Because I don't watch that kind of thing. And I know a lot of people I talked to never even heard of Mr. Beast. And so it does seem like, there are millions and millions of people, obviously, that like Mr. Beast. And I'm sure YouTube has tried with me before, but it doesn't continue to.
Okay.
But I guess short videos, especially a short funny video, has a lot more wide appeal, even than somebody like Mr. Beast. It just seems like that indicates it must be so hard to really compete when maybe 30% of the videos are just these ones that have millions and millions and millions of views getting shown to everybody. Then there's way less space for these smaller creators. I think the only way smaller creators can make it is if they are getting shown to people who have a particular interest in their thing that is more, less broad appeal.
Yeah, that would make sense. Also, from the creation standpoint, that's probably where I have more, experience with YouTube Shorts. It's really interesting to watch a YouTube short get pushed out. Anyone who does shorts probably has seen this. Like, it just like spikes up and then it plateaus. And then if it takes off again, it'll spike up and then typically plateau. Like, you can almost see it visually being pushed out to an audience.
Yeah, it's funny.
And then it stops. And then it might happen again or it might not. And so I think you're right. I do think like YouTube is testing it in a very specific way. And I'd be interested to know, is the Reels algorithm or is the TikTok algorithm pushing those videos out in the same way that YouTube does? Because YouTube, it just feels like short bursts, and sometimes sort of random.
Interesting. So where do you see things going in the next maybe 3 years on YouTube?
For YouTube as a platform, I think YouTube is going to have to figure out some things to want to keep creators on platform. I think especially bigger creators, because just like I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, lots of creators are going and finding other opportunities for monetization off platform, which in my personal opinion is the best way to do it. It makes you a business. It makes you, it makes it a real thing if you can get multiple forms of monetization. And I think YouTube is working that way. I was just reading that, they're improving the way that you can do affiliate links on platform, and they're improving shopping experiences for customers. So if you have your own merch or your own products, like YouTube really is trying to integrate stuff. They've done the YouTube memberships for different channels. So I think they're going to keep implementing things like that. A concern that I have is they're going to try and dip their fingers in too much, and then it's going to kind of, just make the platform messy. Overall, I'm pretty confident just that YouTube will continue to be a great place for new creators. Over the past few years, we have seen a lot of people join the platform, but there are billions of people watching. I just looked it up. It's like 2.4 billion viewers on YouTube. So you can just imagine how much content's being watched every day. So also, I think right now, the CEO of YouTube, Neil, I think that he's doing a great job working with creators. I think it was Susan before that. And they both seem to care about creators. And so I hope that it can just continue to be better. But as far as specifics, like you said, the industry is changing so fast. I'd have a really hard time saying exactly what I think the platform will look like in 5 years.
Right. Do you think in the short term we're going to keep seeing this dip that's kind of seems to be happening? Do you agree that there's currently a dip?
In just YouTube viewership overarchingly?
Or more the creator economy side of things with ad revenue and how many views they're able to get and things like that?
I think it'll be okay. Actually, I just found something really interesting that sort of combats that point. Let's see if I even noted it down. Oh, yeah. Okay. YouTube reported Q1 of 2024, $8.1 billion in ad revenue, which was their highest Q1 to date. I think the whole Google suite is on track to do $100 billion this year, which is their base year. And so I think overall, it will keep growing.
So my concern is that it looks good when they present the numbers like that, but it's because so many more videos are being uploaded. There's so many more creators. So per creator, people are getting a lot less because the companies are paying a lot less for ads because it's, from what I've researched, it sounds like the data is showing that the ads don't do a lot as much as I used to think. You know, there's so much hype around like brand recognition and stuff. And it just seems like the ad companies aren't, or the companies paying for ads aren't seeing these results. YouTube's like, oh, you know, we've done more ads than ever, but per creator.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense from that standpoint. Then I think, yes, I think per creator, it will probably get harder and harder. But that's just kind of how it goes, in my opinion. Like, you know, anytime that there's a niche or anything that people are really interested in doing, it's going to become saturated. It will become a little bit harder, but I still think there's a lot of space. There's just so many different ways to make money. You know, we talk about traditional advertising, you know, like on TV or on radio or whatever. A lot of companies just want to get their name out to people. And so, yes, of course, companies are going to want conversion. So maybe they end up spending a little bit less, but or less maybe per video or whatever, however they're running those ads, but maybe they, you know, run more ads overall on more channels. YouTube may end up having to change some monetization requirements. Right. You know, maybe they have to boost it up from 1,000 subs to 10,000 subs in 5 years. I don't know. But I also think about creators who get to work with brands directly, where they're doing a direct sponsorship. I think that that's a big opportunity for creators, where traditionally people have gone to celebrities. You know, like companies will go have a celebrity sponsor Gatorade, right? Like an Olympic athlete. Well, why couldn't like a, you know, Dude Perfect sponsor Gatorade? You know, why couldn't Gatorade sponsor them? I think they do stuff like that now. So I think companies will get more used to doing things like that and may be willing to work with smaller creators. So anyway, overall, I just think it's going to be good for small creators. Yeah, it'll probably get a little harder, but again, there are so many people watching that I just think there's always going to be space. Right.
And again, that comes back to people relying so much on ads, which especially for small creators, why? Don't do it. Ads are not going to be that great anyways. Even at their peak, ads were not the best option. So if anything, maybe it encourages people to focus more on those other forms of monetization that we know can be so much better than ads. So I'm not worried about it either, but I can see why there's a little bit of panic, especially with the big creators that they get so dependent on that income. They hire so many people. They get so used to, I think, making this content that gets so many views, and then they do make enough from ads. But then if their ad revenue starts to drop, even if it's still pretty high, it's lower than their new standard of living, and then they start to panic. And a lot of times people's views drop so much over the years. And I think YouTube just keeps changing so much. And I wonder if it was kind of like, you know, this, people might call it golden age, but almost this gold rush of people realize, oh, you can make money on YouTube. So everybody rushes over to YouTube and is there mostly to make money. And so we're all like learning how to optimize more and more and more for views and honestly psychological tricks to keep people watching. And, you know, how do we manipulate this thing that's basically a drug and get people to watch longer, make more money? But there's always going to be a need. Like, no matter what happens, even if people get completely sick of that whole thing, there's always going to be a need for people to upload videos. Like, we have a broadcasting service that we are always going to want to use. I don't know, people keep saying like, oh, we want more genuine, we're tired of this. But I wonder if it'll just naturally happen, you know? And I think that's the only thing that's going to work, because if we're all like, okay, now we got to make it look like it's more genuine, that might work for 2 years. But then it's all going to look the same. People are going to see through it. It almost seems like the only place it could go is actually being more genuine, when people actually like want to upload content for some other purpose, or, monetizing in different ways. So yeah, you're getting your name out there, you're getting your content out there, but it's not just all about like keeping your eyes on it as long as possible.
Right.
Which is wild to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. I think over the course of the next few years, the brand, people's brands are going to be very important.
Yeah.
And figuring out how to take the people watching your videos, finding ways to move them off platform for other monetization. But at the end of the day, obviously Google is one of the largest, I could say, media corporations in the world. And I think that they see a lot of value in YouTube. So I think they're going to do their best to keep it running well. I think a lot of people are going to still, even on the advertising side, I still think it's going to be fine. If radio still works, I think that YouTube will probably work for a while. It's going to hang in there. Yeah, it'll probably last at least a couple more years.
Yeah. Do you think there's any chance that it could start looking more like Patreon, where maybe you go to a page and there's a video, but it's maybe not like all video? Because YouTube adds new features all the time, kind of like the community tab, but maybe it does almost like you can see, okay, the paid content's over here and their free stuff is here, and maybe they have, links to other merch, or like their stores over here and their, I don't know, PDFs, or
right.
Do you think, can you imagine that?
I think it could. I hope not.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would love to keep that off platform. I hope YouTube can stay as true to the original as possible, where it's just like we're uploading content. The focus is the video.
And why is that?
I don't know. It just feels like it keeps it clean. When we have PDFs over here and the community over, right now it's just a lot. And, I talked about the shopping features that they're adding, and then the affiliate features and all this. It's just like, at some point it becomes kind of convoluted. Like why is everyone on platform?
Yeah.
And I also think that when it comes to supporting creators, like on an individual level, if 10 of my favorite creators are all charging me $5 a month, it's like, I'm going to stop watching. And I know it's like a choice, but I think YouTube does need to be careful. If everything ends up behind a paywall, they're going to lose a lot of the broad audience, which if advertising does start failing them in the long run, maybe they don't care. But I don't know. Overall, I really love the free content on YouTube. I think not only the entertainment, but the education, the connection that happens there in communities that are grown just by someone uploading videos with no other. Obviously there's probably some monetization going on, but it just feels very clean, and I really like that. Yeah.
YouTube adds new features so often that it kind of feels like it's headed, maybe not that specific direction, but somewhere more convoluted, like you said. Right. I cannot believe how often they add new features. But
it's all the time.
What are your other thoughts?
Yeah, so let's just talk about some of the other things that are going on in the creator economy right now. I just pulled a couple really interesting things that stood out to me. A New York Times article just reported that 16 of the top 30 podcasts in the world in their last quarter were available as video. So we're talking podcasts here, which is traditionally audio, but 16 of these 30 most popular podcasts are available now as video, and that is up from only 7 being available as video in the previous quarter. So to me, that's showing, like people are moving to video podcasts. And I think there's this whole discussion to be had around sort of the re-emergence of podcast. I think, it's like the butterfly, like this little worm thing goes into the chrysalis and it emerges a butterfly. Like audio podcasts are fine. They really got popular in like, what was it, like the 2007, 2008 to 2012. And then they weren't really the thing, but they've really kind of re-emerged. But honestly, a lot of people are creating video podcasts right now. And I think that could be really big.
It feels like Bitcoin. I mean, not expressing a current opinion about Bitcoin, but like when Bitcoin is brand new and you could buy, 10 for $1, it was like, everyone's like, it's going to be big. It's going to be big. And everyone else goes, okay, sure it will. And I swear that people that are really into podcasting, especially, 10 years ago, or maybe longer, were the same way. They're like, it's taken off. And everyone's like, radio's dead. What are you talking about? And it is. And I don't know how much more it's going to explode, or if it'll just keep having these lulls and then burst, but it's interesting.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with the brand, like we've talked about. For creators and their brands, for someone who's really, really into a creator, being able to sit down and listen to an hour of that creator or 2 hours, or, it's just also a lot of times it just gives you the option. It's interesting how often I will pull up a podcast just on YouTube rather than going to Spotify or like the Apple Podcast app. Even if I'm not actively watching it, sometimes I like just to peek over and see, if the guest says something crazy or whatever, kind of peek over and see what their facial reaction was. Yeah. I'm finding myself doing that more and more. But again, I think overarchingly, I think it's a really good piece a good way for creators to get people into their brand and really more ingrained in it.
Yeah, and more familiar.
Mm-hmm.
You can, when you see the face, you get more familiar with it. Yeah, I think podcasts will be around for a long, long time because you're always going to be doing stuff.
Yeah.
Where you can't watch, you want to listen. You're working out or driving or whatever. But it does surprise me kind of that the video podcasts are doing so well. Mm-hmm. I understand upload as video anyways, even if it's not going to do much because it's not that much extra work. But it's surprising to me how many people do want to watch the videos when.
I also think that as far as short form content goes, I think that plays into it a lot because you end up getting these video clips, really snappy video clips of some famous person saying something really interesting. It's like, oh, I wonder what that conversation was about. I think that those are playing really well into the marketing of video podcasts because they perform really well as short. So they go far as short form content goes. And then people end up wanting to convert over to the long form. Yeah. So anyway, I think that's probably part of it.
And the thumbnails. The thumbnails can be so intriguing. We're going to start doing that with this podcast to make the thumbnails a little more interesting because we've known for forever that we should, but it's extra work, but we know it'll count. So.
Yeah. Okay. So on the topic of short form.
Yeah.
TikTok. There is a lot going on with TikTok right now.
Yeah. Let's get into this.
So a lot has been going on. Like I said, the U.S. really, it's just, especially if you're U.S. If you're not in the U.S. and you're listening, I apologize. We'll keep this fairly brief, but it's a big deal for short form content. Yeah. I mean, we're talking probably hundreds of millions of users. Maybe not hundreds of millions, but a lot of users potentially being banned totally from TikTok. And TikTok is putting up a fight. So ByteDance, which is the parent company of TikTok, has been told by essentially the U.S. government that they need to sell TikTok to primarily be held by U.S. owners just because of data security issues. And TikTok's pushing back. And I think it was just yesterday or the day before, TikTok or ByteDance is suing now the U.S. government for infringing on the First Amendment rights of U.S. citizens, which I think is interesting that a foreign company is suing the United States government for infringing upon rights. Anyway, kind of a really interesting scenario, but basically up until this point, the government has said that they have 9 months to sell. And if a deal's in place, they'll extend it out another 3. What it looks like, a lot of people are speculating that this lawsuit that ByteDance is giving the U.S. government is to kind of draw out the process, give them some more time. Because basically what typically happens from the research that I've done is that if there's a lawsuit in place, the ban essentially won't go into effect until that gets resolved, which can take years.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that that's kind of the play here, kind of smart from their perspective. Whether or not it should be banned, that's like a whole different question. I think for creators, it could hurt a lot of TikTok creators. What are your thoughts on TikTok, Julia?
Well, as you, Nathan, know, I'm not the biggest fan personally of TikTok. I've actually never had it, so I can't really make a judgment. But I've seen enough.
I don't think you'd like it.
I don't think you'd like it. Thank you. Yes, I don't think I'd like it. But, yeah, I mean, from a political perspective, though, it is tricky. And I do just find it so fascinating. Like, it's so fascinating, like you said, that another country is suing the U.S. government and just how much power they have, whether it's, whether they should or shouldn't have that. There's a lot of power to have over somebody else's, society, like especially with how much we all consume this. And then I don't know the details, but I heard that they sent out like a notification about how to contact your local representative. That is wild. Like, can you imagine us sending something to all the Chinese citizens being like, contact your local? That wouldn't happen.
Yeah. That's pretty wild.
Let it happen.
Yeah. Pretty wild.
It's a lot of power. So it's interesting. I don't know. I feel like maybe creators in general would be better off because they would learn to make more of a brand instead of just this kind of, it almost feels like fast fashion or something. It's like nobody's benefiting a lot from this. Even the creators, like in the short term, you're benefiting a lot, but it's kind of junk food. There's good stuff on there, but it just seems like maybe we can all go a little deeper and have more lasting, sustainable businesses. I know there are some people that have grown businesses and personal brands with TikTok, but in general, I think that long form is probably more beneficial. I imagine TikTok has to have or the company, what is it, ByteDance? ByteDance. They must have a plan A and a plan B, we'll drag it out as long as possible. Right. I wonder if they're planning on trying to sell in the meantime or start another company in America that they're, I don't know, try to get around it somehow. I don't know what's going to happen. It kind of seems like the kind of thing that'll just come up every year of
just kind of be ongoing for a long
forever.
time. Yeah. I mean, I think people's valuations of TikTok right now are like at $100 billion. So to sell it, I think from what I've heard, there are people interested in buying it, but they're not wanting to let go of the algorithm piece. They're just wanting to let go of the app piece, which the app without the algorithm is essentially nothing. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of controversy about whether or not you could kind of revive it pretty quickly. But honestly, like, would you buy YouTube without its algorithm? No, you wouldn't. Like that is YouTube. So anyway, it's just a really interesting discussion. I do feel for creators who are primarily and like solely on TikTok. I think that it's another reason to diversify. And the same could be said for YouTube. I mean, we talk about what's going to happen to YouTube in 5 years. What if something crazy like this happened where if you're not diversified on other platforms, you could be in big trouble. So anyway, very interesting topic. Talking about big deals, not quite $100 billion, but the creators Dude Perfect. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Yep.
They have quite a successful YouTube channel. I'm not sure how many subs they have at this point, but they've done a ton. They do all sorts of things. They have products in stores. They do live shows. I don't know if they've done a worldwide tour, but at least all over the U.S. But they are raising capital or have raised capital to expand their brand. And they have raised $100 million from an investment firm.
And
holy cow!
Said how they want to expand their brand. What is this?
I've heard like thoughts of a theme park.
Whoa!
Like just tons of different things. I don't know if there's some education involved in that, but huge plans. And some of the reasons they talk about, which I think is really insightful of them. They said, they do trick shots and they do a lot of sort of entertainment style stuff. And they just have said, we can't do this our entire lives.
Yeah.
Like the whole brand itself is very positive and uplifting and, encourages activity and just like really good stuff. And they want that to live on past the time where they're still going to be relevant. So I love the idea where sort of the focus of the brand can continue on. I mean, you think about, if anyone knows Dolly Parton, she has Dollywood, she has her own theme park. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so like, this is something that has been done before. I don't think very often, but she's an icon in the world of music, and they're
is that
kind
in Hollywood?
of iconic.
Where is it?
No, it's somewhere in the farther east, I think. I'm not sure. Maybe Tennessee. Fun. I could be totally wrong.
I do better in Tennessee.
But anyway, it's like a big theme park, and she does a lot of philanthropic things, and I think that they plan to do that type of thing. Anyway, I just love the idea of making your brand timeless as a creator, because we know that the lifespan of creators, especially on YouTube, is pretty short. And so figuring out how to maintain that is awesome.
I know. The question I have, and I would like to learn more about, is how can small creators do that? I mean, really small creators are just working on getting off the ground on YouTube. But, people that are not at 20 million subscribers, if you're at a couple 100,000 or even 50,000, how can you get your brand to live on? I mean, there's the regular info products and courses, but what are other ways that are more decentralized from YouTube that you can, we know of that brand that does the jump parks.
Yes.
Blanking on the name.
Something
Ninja Kids.
Ninja Kids. Yeah.
Ninja Kids. They have gummy snacks too. The gummy snacks are great. You can get them at Walmart. This is not sponsored.
I ate so many of those.
Should be. We should see if we can.
Yeah, they were yummy.
They'll sponsor this podcast and we'll eat gummy snacks. So the kids watch these videos and they want to go to the jump parks, but you can see how that would still sustain itself even without the channel. So how do you get to a point, if you have an info product or an ebook, how long is that going to last if you don't have your channel? I want to find ways that these creators can really sustain their brand even if they end up off YouTube.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of different things, and some of them are very business oriented. Some of them are sort of purpose driven, where maybe they start a scholarship fund or something. Or I've seen people do animal rescues for specific animals that they really love. If they love dogs, they'll start a charity for that. Or I've seen people who do coding where at some point I think they plan to make all their code for their games open source so that people can get in and create, continue to create forever and ever.
So cool.
Little things like that. And maybe those aren't the best business moves to keep your business going on forever, but it would leave a legacy if you do something like that. So I think there's a lot of ways to do it. You really do have to think outside the box. And I think the smaller you are, probably the harder it is. But there's always a way that you can kind of make a difference, because if you have anybody following you, those are people who would probably love to be a part of whatever it is you're doing.
And if it's good product, it'll spread even beyond people that know who you are.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of a cool thing. One other thing I wanted to just ask you about. Dude Perfect raised this capital, essentially an investment. What are your thoughts on taking cash infusions as a creator? I'm scared of it. Like, that sounds so scary to me, but I'm interested to hear your take.
Well, tell me yours first. I'm curious yours.
Well, I mean, I am probably more of the bootstrap it kind of person. You know, whatever little money I would have extra to invest, you know, start on your phone, you know, make a little bit of money, get a camera, whatever, like move up that way and never borrow. I guess that's more of my financial perspective. To take $100 million investment into your company means that you're on the hook for that.
I know.
But there are a lot of people and some companies now starting to have ways to fund creators, where maybe they can give you, you know, 10 grand or to, you know, start your studio or whatever, but then they may maintain some sort of ownership in your channel or, you know, take some of your ad revenue, which I think for some creators it could be great, but for most I would be really scared to do that. It just feels risky.
The wild thing for a creator is that you have a company that almost can't be sold. It can be. The Dude Perfect could sell a YouTube channel.
Right.
But it's not going to be worth nearly as much to anybody else except for them. Right. So I guess my question would be, at that size, you know, how long would it take them to pay back $100 million if it didn't work out?
Right.
I have no concept of that.
Yeah. That's a really good question.
But for a small creator, absolutely. I'd say I think, I don't know what the facts at all. I haven't really looked into it, but I have heard that a lot of these investing companies are kind of predatory and scammy. It wouldn't surprise me. I just don't think that's a good idea. Well, you're a small creator. You don't know what your brand is. You don't know if you're going to do it long term. There's too much uncertainty to really let somebody borrow a lot of money towards it, I think, especially if you don't have like a solid plan of how you'd pay it back. If you own a house and you say, okay, if this doesn't work out, I'm happy to sell my house. Sure. If that's what you want to do it. Understanding the risk, but most people borrowing money probably don't have a grand plan for how they could pay it back. A company as big as Dude Perfect,
you're probably
I don't know. It feels a little bit more like strategic borrowing. Like if you're, I don't know, investment company and you're buying and flipping houses or buying a whole complex in Florida near Disney World to make into Airbnbs. Like you kind of know a timeline of when you're going to make your money back roughly. Yeah. I mean, a theme park's kind of uncertain, but I don't know. Yeah. I would worry about it less. For a big creator, seems like
definitely
you know what you're doing.
I think you're right. But I think a lot of the risk lies in the early days.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think for most creators, you really should try and work through that period yourself.
Yeah.
And that's sort of your proof of concept, because as you diversify, like Dude Perfect has, you're right, the risk goes down. I mean, they're doing live shows, they're selling out arenas, and like just that alone. I mean, okay, comparing to Dude Perfect, Taylor Swift is a little bit silly, but like Taylor Swift made billions of dollars on her recent tour. And it's just like, if Dude Perfect did 10% of that, could they have made $100 million from their live shows last year? And they just know, if this goes south, we'll just do another year of live shows.
Double our yeah, exactly.
Like, it's probably not that big of a deal. But yeah, for early creators, it is more intimidating. Probably a better move just to bootstrap it.
I would think so.
One other thing really quick that I just thought was really interesting in the industry, Threads. I don't know if you are familiar with Threads. This is Meta's competitor to Twitter. They launched 7 months ago. I think they just passed 150 million users, and they just recently launched a creator bonus program. So
tell me about the bonus program.
Very little information. Basically, all the rules are the same as the Instagram monetization program, and for now it's invite only at this point, but could definitely turn into something later on for creators. So I just thought that was kind of cool, another platform for creators to potentially monetize.
To keep an eye on it. Yeah. Does it seem like it's doing well? I'm surprised I haven't heard of it, but
I think there's a lot of people unhappy with Twitter right now. X and Elon Musk
trying to start something else. I mean, it's great for any platform to have. I wish every single platform had a solid competitor so that they're not so much of a monopoly.
Yeah. So I think they're growing well. And I mean, obviously 150 million users is a lot. I think I just looked it up. There's like 2 billion users on YouTube. So it's still relatively small, but growing and definitely a good place. Anytime something new starts up like that, if you can dip your fingers in the pot a little early,
Right.
there's always extra.
See how it works.
Yeah, you can always make a little extra. So
Cool.
anyway, lots going on in the creator economy right now. These are literally, as I was just looking for things to talk about, these are just a few.
I know.
But it just shows how thriving to me that the economy is right now.
Ever changing,
Unpredictable.
We should do
Yeah.
these episodes more often. I like
Yeah,
this.
but it's fun. It's just fun to see what's going on, see what other creators are doing.
Thank
It's
you for doing all
crazy.
that research. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, very fun.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll talk to you guys next week. We did an experiment, and
Yes.
Nathan made a video in 8 hours. So we're actually going to have 2 episodes after this, one talking about that experience of trying to make a video in 8 hours, which
Yeah.
is way shorter than we normally take.
Yeah, we're usually on like a 2-week time frame.
Yeah. And then another episode sort of critiquing
Yeah,
that
yeah.
episode of what could have been done better, because with 8 hours, there's some things that could have been done better, but I think
Totally.
you did pretty darn good with the time you had. So that'll be interesting. I had like this perfect reason for you guys to go check out Project 24, and I can't remember what it was. But go check out Project 24. It probably something with our community. That's
Yeah.
Oh, I know what it was. It was the Project 24 podcast. I was going to say
yeah.
we should talk more about something that we talked about earlier in this episode that I don't remember what.
Let's do it.
This is amazing. Plug into it. But we have a private podcast in Project 24, and Project 24 is quite expensive for just that podcast. But
Right.
if you're a creator and you're interested in a community and a course and getting better on YouTube, then definitely check out Project 24, because it's really awesome. And the members only podcast is super fun. So we're going to be making some episodes for that soon. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Yeah.